We're here with Barry. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to learn of the book?
Yes, so it had to do with Facebook, honestly. Was living in Berlin, which is where we're filming this, in case anyone is wondering. And, when you RSVP for an event, I think Facebook now kind of has this built-in letting you know other events that you might be interested in as well. And so it kind of popped up on the bottom line. And I saw the photo, which I don't think it was the cover photo of the book, but it was another photo from inside. And the title, and it just looked interesting. So I clicked it, read about it, and I clicked that I was interested in going. And then I sent it to Patrick, whose dad was coincidentally coming in town as well. And I wound up not being able to make the event because a friend of mine was coming in town from the States, but Patrick went with his dad, and yeah, that's how we found out about the book. So social media.
You didn't actually make it to the exhibition, did you?
So no, we arrived at 10:45 and the exhibition ended at 10:30. But Patrick bought the book, so when Adam and I arrived, we looked in the windows and saw some of the pictures that were hanging, the photographs, and then we wound up going to dinner with the two lovely authors of the book, the photographer and, what would you say, the photographer and print writer. And that's when I first saw the book, 'cause Patrick bought it.
Cool.
So yeah. And I recognized someone from the book. I knew him in New York from a few years ago. Jeff. Charmin Ultra. Charmin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Charmin Ultra perform?
I did, yeah. So he had moved to New York with his best friend Aaron, who also does drag, and they were performing at a bar in Brooklyn. So I saw them a few times. And also in Hell's Kitchen, I forgot the name of the bar, but yeah, I saw them perform a few times.
Can I ask you, what was your feeling when you realized that you had a personal connection to someone in the book?
It wasn't necessarily a surprise. Maybe I was surprised that it was him who it was that was photographed, just because I hadn't seen him in years. But this community, the community that was photographed for the book, which is the community that I'm in, is small enough that even globally, people know who other people are through their work. Whether it's through a group on Facebook or an event that someone's attended or a blog post that's written online, I think there's a bit of a common ground within kind of the queer and trans community. So I wasn't surprised, no.
You mentioned that you had spent some time in London in the past. Did you delve into the queer community there?
So I was in London for 2 weeks in 2012, and I went to an event, which was in like the Shoreditch area, which is where my friend was living that I was staying with at the time. And it was like sort of this queer dance party with drag queens that were maybe not necessarily performing numbers, but they were like part of the ambiance, part of the night. So it was definitely a queer curated event. But that was really the only event that I went to during that trip. But then here in Berlin, a couple months ago, there's a festival called Yo Sissy, which is a queer music festival that a friend of mine has founded. And he brought in a group of performing queer burlesque drag queens to perform at Yo Sissy. So now I've met them and I follow them online. So hopefully I'll make it to one of their shows. And I saw them perform here. So I saw the queer London scene performing in Berlin, but not in London. Go figure. Go figure.
And as someone who has lived and traveled in many different places in the world, how would you characterize the community here, if that's possible?
The queer community here? I would say it's the most effective is the wrong word. The most that I've ever felt in a community of what so many people consider to be the other. So yes, there's a queer community in San Francisco that I've come across. Yes, in New York, like in Brooklyn, even Atlanta, which is where I lived for a couple years. And when I was in Amsterdam, I saw a little bit of it, but the biggest community that I've ever seen for the queer community is here in Berlin. And I think that partially it has to do with perhaps the history of the city, and that's just the nature of the city, this magic that occurred that people just don't really care so much about what other people do with their lives, and it just maybe is a more freeing way to live. Therefore, people feel more authentic in their living. But I think part of it has to do with the fact that this city combines the gay world, the lesbian world, and the queer world into one, where I found that in so many other cities, they're separate. You have like the gay bars in areas, but then you have like the one bar that's where the queer community goes. And I find that in so many cities, but I don't find that as much here. I find that if someone's throwing an event or a party and people are interested in that, then you have this more diverse group. So it feels more unique in that sense. It's not so specific as some other cities are.
To bring it back to the book, because I'm curious, because I think you've actually had experiences in a lot of the cities that we covered in the book. Can you draw any sort of parallels between your experience and what you're reading or seeing when you look at the book?
To me, the book is so beautiful because it represents what is normal in my world. So when I'm reading the stories and when I'm seeing these photographs and I'm seeing the self-expression, the way that people are dressing and presenting themselves, to me, this is normal. And what's so crazy about it is that this is considered not the norm for people, and maybe there's some shock value in the book, right? When they pick it up and they're like, why is this human dressed this way? He's a guy, he's a girl, she's whatever. Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably a complex answer because I don't think it's something that I can answer so quickly or short, but like to kind of bring it back to that concept, which is, for me, clothes are just clothes. I don't see... I think people express themselves how they wish to express themselves, and the more free that you feel, the more open that your self-expression will be. And I don't think that anyone in the first place should worry about wearing what's men's clothes, what's women's clothes. So it just, the world that I'm in, working with different artists, drag queens, singers, Gender Flux, which is a queer brand that I work with back in the States that my friend Elliot runs, who's a gender variant fashion blogger. I've been surrounded with so many people that are in touch with their authentic selves that this just is a great representation to show the world that so many of us are already living in, which is free from the norms, free from the stereotypes.
I feel like that's a really good way to end this.
Cool.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.